Everyone, I'm Allison. Thank you for joining me for Where I'm From 249 with Jean-Pierre, or the Dónde Soy con Jean-Pierre, because he's going to read his poem in Spanish, which is so exciting. It's the first time that I'm having somebody share their poem, and it's not all, well, mostly in English. Jean-Pierre joined me for 192 where he read his poem in English, and we had talked about bilingual poetry when we had that experience, and then it was like, well, you should join me and share it in Spanish. So that's what the plan is. What have you been reading? I read Heart the Lover by Lily King. I really enjoy her books, and this one made me cry. I think they pretty much all make me cry. I read someone say that it's a love story, not a romance, and to know the difference, and I thought that was a very accurate description of the book. And well, I don't know what else. I'll see if I could get Jean-Pierre here. Oh, here he is. Hello. I was just saying that I'm inviting you to join me, Jean-Pierre. Oh, here you are. Well, here's a black box, so we'll hopefully fill with your face very soon, or your roof. Hello.
There we go.
Ceiling. Hi, how are you?
Good. How's everyone doing? How are you?
I'm doing all right. Yes, I was just saying that you joined me for number 192 with us, where your poem was mostly in English, and then I think it was Lisa joined me, and who is a friend of yours, and she was talking about writing a poem in Russian. And you and I had talked about bilingual poetry, and then it was like, well, you should join me if you'd like with your Spanish poem. So here you are, and I'm so glad you're here.
Yeah, so much fun. I played around with the
Mm-hmm.
translation of it. I really like the prompt, and I want to see how it sounds. I tested the different version of it,
Yeah.
and it ended up being pretty similar to it. But Spanish does some things that we'll discuss afterwards.
Yeah, I'm really curious
Yeah.
to talk about that because, of course, I am not fluent in Spanish, but I recognize things. And I was like, okay, so this is like, the general notion of but I am interested to hear about your experiences translating. And hi, Guinea, I'm glad you made it. And whenever you're ready.
Yeah. So thank you. I am going to be reading from my phone. I hope that's okay.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Okay. So, title: ¿De dónde soy? De noches con lluvia cálida, de arroz con pollo y repeticiones de los Simpsons en la tele. Vengo del país del bosque nuboso, con calles sin nombre, bulevares comerciales vibrantes, ruidosos, llenos de vida, y aceras tejidas por mercaderes. Vengo de orquídeas moradas, eucaliptos, manzana de agua, frutas tropicales carmesí con forma de lágrima de miel, que no se parecen a la pera ni a la manzana. Vengo de medianoche de Navidad iluminada y del profundo café de los ojos de mi mamá, de las manos de enfermera de mi bisabuela y el silbido de mi abuelo cuando tocaba la guitarra. Vengo del lenguaje de señas que me enseñó mi tío sordo y su memoria infalible compartiendo historias. Vengo de procesiones de Viernes Santo en el calor de abril y de traducir la misa en California cuando escucho al sacerdote. Vengo de San José, el valle central de Costa Rica, y de la brisa del océano Pacífico, de la infancia de mi abuela. Tamales envueltos en hojas verdes de plátano, esmeralda, marinando mi cerdo asado a fuego lento la mañana de Acción de Gracias, de mi mamá perdiéndose el funeral de su padre en nuestro país, para que mi hermano y yo pudiéramos soñar en inglés. La alegría de escuchar la voz de mi tío abuelo contando chistes mientras me enseñaba a jugar ajedrez. Pupurrís de memoria en videocassettes de los 90s y álbumes de fotos de momentos dejados en otro mundo. Guardo estas cosas astilladas y descoloridas junto al corazón para sentir el río de la nostalgia corriendo a través de ellas.
Thank you. That made me really emotional.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing it. So, what was your experience translating your poem?
Yeah, for this one, the initial poem that I did in English was born in Spanish, and then I
Yeah.
ended up translating it to be an English poem. So this one, I went back to the original, to the same ideas. I kind of want to frame it with the that mixture of experiences of having a childhood and early preteen years in Costa Rica, and then being an adult, and the experience of being a parent, being a father, and how that same curiosity I have for love and memories is now kind of rekindled as a father. So those traditions that I kept close to me are kind of coming back now full circle as a parent, and it's interesting because my kids are going to have their own traditions.
Yeah.
They may differ from things that I have. The same comes with speaking Spanish. The relationship that they may have with Spanish is very different from the one that I have. But I hope that the way that they think of English is the way that I treasure Spanish. I hope that the way that I treasure Costa Rica is the same way that they treasure California.
Yeah. I agree. Gania just was in the comments saying, I only understand the words that are similar to French or English. So this was like listening to music, also lovely. Similar to her, although her French is better than mine. But it is funny when you have children, and it was interesting for me when I was working with this prompt, because we are creating traditions. And if you aren't particularly religious, which I'm not, those traditions are much more familial or communal, and you kind of don't, I mean, the language piece is very clear, right? But these other things we're building, they aren't as clear.
Correct. Yeah, I agree. Some of the traditions that I would share, I think one of my friends, I'm sorry if I got a little bit dark.
That's okay.
Yeah, one of my friends was talking about what's universal and how do we keep what we embrace and give it to our children or the next generation. Doesn't have to be our kids, but the next generation, right?
Yeah.
And we're talking about food. Food is really this universal language, right?
Yeah.
In the poem, I talk about tamales, like Costa Rican tamales have the plantain the wrap on the masa.
Yeah.
They're very moist. The Mexican tamales are wrapped in the corn
Dry.
and they can be drier, right?
Yes.
I appreciate both of them.
Yes. No, so do I. I'm just saying they're drier for sure. And I think if you aren't raised with them, I mean, I was for the most part. Some people are like, oh, I mean, it's just I love food, and we love food, and I'm enjoying the World Cup just in general, but some of my favorite stuff is people eating American food.
Oh
Like
man,
all
I'm trying it for the first time.
It's just like, I don't know, there's something so universal about traveling to a new place and trying the food and feeling some relationship with the people because you're eating their food. And it's a different thing than just seeing it on TV.
I've been drinking coffee since I was probably 5, 6 years old, and the
Yeah.
first time I had breakfast in LA when I traveled from Costa Rica to California. We went to a restaurant for breakfast and everyone was ordering and I ordered coffee and I remember that the waitress's eyes just lit up.
Yeah.
Are you sure? And then looked at my mom and my mom was like, yeah, no sugar too, black. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
because it's a cultural thing and it's a family thing. It's one of those, it's a tradition thing. So, I play around with smells a lot in my poems. Read this thing about how the retention of memory is tied up to that particular sense more than anything.
Yeah.
And I think they went all the way to like 70% or something. It's crazy. But
yeah. And in the comments, she's saying food remains even after generations when the language skills fade.
because she has also lived in different continents with different languages. And
I love that.
it is interesting because it does. Like, I mean, I don't love sauerkraut the way my mom loves sauerkraut, but my kids know that my mom loves sauerkraut. Like it's something that, and it's just, I don't know. It's a sweet thing. Food is like just it is a love language. I don't really believe in love languages, but food, the ones in the book, but food is one. And I am certainly a person who loves to feed people.
Yeah. Cooking. I enjoy cooking more than, especially if it's for Thanksgiving. That's I mentioned it in the poem too. I do pork tenderloin,
Mm-hmm.
and
Nice.
they do in Puerto Rico. They do kind of like a shredded pork, which
Right.
is really good to make instead of turkey. So
Mm-hmm.
my kids are growing up with the idea that Thanksgiving is a certain way, and then I'm just kind of infusing things. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious to see what happens when they grow up. I want to see if they naturally will gravitate towards that. Kind of how I gravitate towards certain foods because they remind me of my mom, they remind me of my uncle, things like that.
It is
Music.
interesting to
Yeah.
to be a witness.
Mhm.
Hmm. And
Yeah.
things that I was just talking to one of my kids last night and about how much food we have in our house. And I was like, I don't know if everyone has this much food. And he's like, they don't. It's
Yeah.
because I don't know. You want to like make food, you want to have snacks, you want to have like, you just want, but you have to be home in order to have that. Like, and I feel safe in my home, which is not something I felt when I was younger. So
Mhm.
I really treasure that feeling. And I think I've not really thought about it consciously, but I want to like offer that to other people, even if they don't have it in their home, because
Yeah.
I remember that in my young life, and how meaningful it was to me. Um, so you were saying the translation that it was because translation is not an exact word for word, as anyone knows who's read anything about translation. It doesn't really work like that. So, which is something I love about Jhumpa Lahiri. She's an author I love, and she writes a lot about translation. And so I think that sort of ties back to a comment. It is sort of like music, right? Trying to kind of capture the music
Mhm.
of the.
The way I treat it, it's I'm always writing about the experience and the emotion, which inherently don't really have a language. They're not tied up to
Mhm.
English or Spanish or French or whatever, right? So this particular poem, um, when I write it in Spanish, I'm going to the theme, and then it's just how does that feel in Spanish, right?
Mhm.
I try not to go and make literal translations, and this one it kind of worked because some of the things it just work with the format.
Mhm.
But if it's something a little bit more specific to an experience rather than um, kind of over here, I'm just opening my chest, right, my rib cage, and talking about things that remind me of where I'm from.
Mhm.
I definitely take the other route, which is, let's say I'm talking about the first time I go to Yosemite. I write it in English, and then how did that feel in Spanish? And then I write it in
Mhm.
Spanish, and then some things intersect. I'm also a believer that things don't get lost in translation; they just get transformed.
Mhm.
Because I don't think that an idea gets lost anywhere. It's just the energy.
Mhm.
You got to follow it, and
Mhm.
that's
Mhm.
the cool thing about language is you'll find another word that fits just right.
Mhm. I think that's the beauty of a well done translation. I think you can feel that magic when you're reading it.
It's
Of
like
of
that.
the yeah, and like the translator's love for the work and what the work is saying. Feeling that it's like an added layer
To me, it's a
to the work.
challenge. It's
Yeah.
an opportunity to bridge communities. Yesterday, I had a reading in Glendale, in California, and I was the keynote speaker for this book festival. So, what I wanted to talk about was how do we honor our ancestors and how do we show resilience in community.
Mhm.
Uh, the audience was pretty mixed, which people that only spoke Spanish, people that only spoke English, and then people that were kind of in the middle.
Mhm.
So organizing that's one of the reasons why I like to write in several ways, because one of those poems is going to stick with someone, or one of those poems will make someone curious enough to try to follow the other language and see how that, if it resonates.
Mhm. Mhm. So, were there answers to what you were saying in your keynote of ways to honor your ancestors, or what was it a conversation, or because I'm curious?
Yeah. So what I did is I have three particular poems in my last book that
Mhm.
talk about the magic of uh, bringing a new country into the one you're in. So
Mm.
I wrote one called San Jose in Los Angeles, which literally
Mhm.
means San Jose, Costa Rica in LA. So
Mhm.
I'm looking at LA from the second story window of my grandma's apartment, which is where I lived when I was here about 15 or so, and trying to imagine what downtown San Jose would look like with this incredible architecture of like downtown LA. You see these giant skyscrapers, right? And anyone that comes from a more modest, cosmopolitan city will see that, right? So when I really miss my country, I would do that. I was just kind of daydreaming, and I'm like, well, I wonder what it would look like if like these people just spoke Spanish instead of English, and
Mm.
what if there was more green, because LA needs more green. It's so gray sometimes.
Yeah.
Um, and that poem kind of led with that. But that
Mhm.
poem really keeping my ancestors. The ancestors really is just the cultural colors that I kept from Costa Rica, that they remained. Um, I miss that more than family itself, because I'm lucky that
Mm.
my immediate family is here.
Mhm.
But there are just some things that, they remain with the country, and you try to pull it apart as much as you can, maybe build
Mhm.
something from it.
Mhm.
The second poem had to do with, forgive me if I kind of go over, but it's being
Not at all.
bilingual.
Go ahead.
So it's being bilingual, and how you jump from one language to the other, and
Mhm.
trying to make sure that one does. In my case, I don't want to lose my Spanish, but I also
Mhm.
want to continue learning English. And then at some
Mhm.
point in life, one overtook the other,
Yeah.
and now I'm fighting to like, okay, no, I need to
Mhm.
really work more on my Spanish, because the English is taking over.
Mhm.
There's this constant conversation that someone that doesn't come from one particular country, you have. Um, I think it humanizes us, and also the immigrant experience is not inherent just to going from one country to another. I think that people that grew up in Kansas and they moved to Minnesota are going to have the same shock that they're going to have if they were to move from LA to New York. And when did they become New Yorkers? Are you an Angelino if you live here for this many years? It's the
People
same
get
thing.
really gatekeepy about that.
Yes.
But it's really like it's interesting to witness it. Because and I try not to do it because it's like, why do I care
Yeah.
what someone calls themselves? Isn't it sort of their choice what they want to call themselves? And who am I to say? I mean, it's just it is interesting to think of it like, and I was thinking of it too with again with the World Cup, like because people are going to places like Kansas, which is not a place someone would normally go if they're visiting the United States. And it's a very different experience than Boston, Los
Correct.
Angeles, New
Correct.
York.
Seattle or something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Which is
Um,
cool. It's cool in its own way. I think
yeah, it's a big place, this country. It's
it
such a very
is.
big place.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
beautiful. I love that it's that diverse. I love that you can go back to food, right? There's food from all over the world.
there is,
In some
there
cases,
is.
within blocks, especially in LA.
Yes, yes. I think that a lot of people who leave LA, that's the thing they miss the most is the food, um, which I get because I've lived other places and I did miss the food, especially if you go someplace without Mexican food or without much Mexican food. It's really like, what do you all eat? Like, oh, okay. So, and I was thinking, you talking about thinking of San Jose, looking out your grandmother's window. Sometimes when I'm hiking, I look back on the city and I think like, what a place this was before all of this. I think about like, obviously like the indigenous people who lived here, and then the first settlers, and because you can still feel it. Like if you sit with the land, you can still feel the history of it. And uh, you just think of how many people this place has nurtured.
I
And
I know I brought up Yosemite earlier.
yeah.
The first time I went, it was probably the best road trip I've
Mm.
had the pleasure to have. I went with my wife and my two kids, and you see so much of California. You see
Yeah.
LA shrinking in the
Oh,
background, right? And
LA's freaking out.
um,
LA was having a moment. Go
yeah.
ahead.
So you leave LA behind, and then it
Yeah.
starts getting more green, it starts getting more yellow, and you get into Fresno, and it's kind of like that last moment before you really dive into the mountains, and the forest kind of takes over and envelops you. This is just within hours. You don't have to get
Yeah.
on an airplane to experience this. It was to this moment the first time I felt, and if it has to be American, that's the first time
Mm.
I felt like,
Mm.
wow, like I really want to live here. Like I
Mm.
understand why people live here, and it makes a lot of sense. The connection, and it's that same connection that I had with nature, similar to the
Mhm.
one I had in Costa Rica with the rain.
Yeah.
And I felt it for the first time. It was really cool. I was, just reminiscing about it. It turned into a poem that is going to be on my next book.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Oh,
kind
wonderful.
of learned from it. Yeah.
I have taken that drive many, many, many times. It is my mom's favorite place in the whole world. And when we would drive up there, she would, once we hit, as you know, you're describing it, you hit this point, and it's sort of like we're leaving all that behind and we're going into Sierras. And she would say, "Oh, I would love to live here. It would be a dream." And now she does.
Mm.
Um,
Wow.
she lives up close to there, and she goes all the time. And she loves it so much. It's a very sacred place.
Yeah. So Mariposa County.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it's awesome.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just like it's a very special place.
Yeah, for sure.
Um,
As a writer, it's gold. Like there's
yeah,
metaphors, and everything you're looking for is literally just within grasp. The drive up there, how windy and dangerous it can be, but then you get the reward, right? Um, uh,
yes, yes. It is very, especially depending on the way you go in. I've gone in all the ways, but I was laughing because one time my mom and I went there unexpected. We were on a road trip and we just decided to go like spur of the moment. And this was before any cell phones or anything. So nobody knew where we were or what we were doing. And we joked with each other, oh, we have both have dark senses of humor. So it's like, well, what if we die? Like nobody will know what happened to us. And we didn't, obviously. But
yeah.
yeah. And then for me, always, and I don't know if you have a similar experience, but the sky that would just be such a magnificent thing when I was a child. It's like, oh my God, look at all these stars because you don't see them here in that way. Um,
The
like
opening,
walking to
right?
the bathroom in the
How
middle of the night.
like how vast it is. It's just,
Yeah.
yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
See all
Yeah.
horizons around you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
So,
then when you go back, to LA and trying to find stars, just a couple days you could see Jupiter and Venus, right?
mhm.
And I kept telling my kid to, like, you got to watch this, like you got to see it, because this doesn't happen all the time. You got to see it, and you're hoping for not a
Yep.
cloudy day.
Mhm. You're
So
like my
otherwise,
mom. She texts
mhm,
me, go
mhm,
outside, look at it.
yeah,
Um,
we don't have to look up when there's an eclipse. Like things happen around us all the time. Yeah.
they do. They do. And before we wrap up, have you been to Griffith? Like we went not long ago, and it was like the hobbyists are there with all of
Oh,
their telescopes.
no,
We
I
did not
haven't. I
go.
haven't been
I
on
think
night.
it'll be worth your time. Like they're out on the lawn and they are have amazing telescopes, and they just are there and they'll show you things with their and just their love and passion for astronomy is really wonderful. And then getting to see things you can't see with your naked eye is
Yeah.
amazing. So
They're just poets like us, right?
they are.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think the more you kind of engage with, or at least the more I've engaged with life, you realize passion is passion, and
Hmm.
curiosity and wonder, and it it doesn't need to be one kind. There's
Exactly.
room for everybody.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's the best message, like being universal. Like a poet
Yeah.
is a poet. I always say when I get a question like, "Who's your favorite male poet? Who's your favorite
Mm, hmm
female or
hmm
whichever gender?" And I'll just say, "Well, they're a poet. I mean, they the the gender. It's not going to determine their emotion directly and choosing a word or such. You read Emily Dickinson because it's Emily Dickinson's poetry, and then you find Pablo Neruda because of what he had to say. They happen to be a man and women. That's how I
Yeah.
wish they find my poetry. It's not just because I'm a Costa Rican poet. It's because I write poetry.
Yeah.
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 Mhm.
Yeah. Well, so without that, I mean, that's a good closing, but is there anything else you would like to say? It's really been such a pleasure. I feel privileged. Like you've been here twice and I've enjoyed it both times. And one of these times I have to make it to a reading or we need to meet in real life because very few people I connect with on here actually live nearby and you do. So,
No, thanks.
and I love what you're doing.
Thank
I'm
you.
so glad you're out there.
I appreciate the opportunity. I invite anyone that is in California. I'll just do my shameless plug.
Yes,
Um,
please.
so I started a poetry reading series in the city of Downey last year. We wanted to bring published authors, local artists, and then anyone that wanted to try reading poetry for the first time as a combined experience. So we did it once, it sold out, and it turned down to a bi-monthly series. And we're going to
Mhm.
celebrate our first year anniversary, July 25th. So it went from like just a text conversation between friends. I was like, hey,
Mhm.
we should
Mhm.
do something and like, read poetry. And
Mhm.
then now the community is engaged. I'm getting people from different counties to join,
Amazing.
and it just organically grew. And I just hope that replicates if you're able to go and see it.
Mhm.
Maybe
Mhm.
that inspires you to do it in your own city. And because that's
Mhm.
what we need is conversation, is dialogue, different ideas. And the poetry is safe because it allows you to be curious about life and maybe share something that you learned or someone taught you.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes. And where do people find details if they're interested in joining you in July or anytime?
Yeah, just follow me on my Instagram at Poetatico. We're working with an art studio called Stay Arts, which is a nonprofit that helps to have teaching artists provide different animation techniques and
Oh, cool.
just take care of different aspects of drawing and art for kids of different ages. And they also do a lot of the representation when it comes to muralists and
Mm.
artists in different aspects. So a lot of the big projects that happen in Downey and those
Mhm.
areas around it usually come from state arts. So I'm privileged to be partnering with them in doing this.
That's wonderful.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, I'm glad. Thank you for your shameless plug. I,
Yeah. Thank you.
um, thank you. And thank you for your time and your words. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to meeting you in person because it will happen. So,
Yeah,
um,
definitely.
yeah.
July 25th.
Okay.
Come to the show.
Okay. Okay. I'm gonna look. I think I'm
Awesome.
in town. Okay. Thank you.
I
Bye,
appreciate
Jean-Pierre.
it. Bye. Thank you to everyone that joined.